Hello and welcome to another 9-minute Bible study. Our starting point, 2 Chronicles chapter 12, verse 1. Before we get to the verse, let's quickly go over where we have been. The church is not the problem in society. The church is the solution to all the problems in society. The believers, we are not the problem. When we are attached to a church, we are part of the solution to the problems. Now, we saw King Rehoboam of the two southern tribes of Judah. During the first 3 years of his reign, everything went well. The nation was blessed. It was prospering. They were a safe haven for all the refugees coming from the 10 northern tribes who were not allowed to worship the Lord freely. In the first 3 years of his reign, everything went great for King Rehoboam. Then disaster happened. What was the beginning of the disaster? Chapter 12, verse 1, 2 Corinthians. And it came to pass, when Rehoboam had established the kingdom and had strengthened himself, he forsook the law of the Lord and all Israel with him. He rejected the Lord. Do you want to know when trouble begins? It begins when a nation, when a group of people reject the Lord, as we said in our last lesson. The problem is the rejection of the Lord. Sin, idol worship, it is the problem. Rehoboam, he thinks it's the solution. Let's go and start worshiping idols, even though there was no problem to solve. Too often, certain people think things can always be better, not realizing that the blessings of the Lord is exactly what we need in our lives. Rehoboam forgot that. What do we see? Verse 22. 1 Kings chapter 14, verse 22. I need to establish this. And Judah did evil in the sight of the Lord, and they provoked him to jealousy with their sin which they had committed. What did we say the problem was? Sin. Very good. Above all that their fathers had done. For they also built them high places and images and groves on every high hill and under every green tree. Verse 24. And there were also Sodomites in the land, and they did according to all the abominations of the nations which the Lord cast out before the children of Israel. This was a nation that had everything going for it. In the days of King David, most of the days of King Solomon, the first 3 years of King Rehoboam, everything went well. And the king threw it all away because he thought he had this new solution. Let's worship the gods of everyone around us. Let's follow their morality. Let's start practicing sin. What is the result? 2 Chronicles chapter 12, verse 2. And it came to pass that in the 5th year of King Rehoboam, Shishak, king of Egypt, came up against Jerusalem because, why? They had transgressed against the Lord. Why was the two southern tribes of Judah in deep, deep trouble? They sinned against the Lord. Verse 3. With 1,200 chariots and 70,000 horsemen, and the people were without number that came with him out of Egypt, the Lubims, the Sukkims, and the Ethiopians. And he took the fenced cities which pertained to Judah and came to Jerusalem. The kingdom was being overrun. Why? Because they had sinned against the Lord. The problem is what? Sin, idolatry, turning away from the Lord. Now things get interesting in verse 5. Then came Shemaiah the prophet to Rehoboam. Now, when a nation is going through bad times because of their sin, the Lord in the Old Testament raised up prophets to tear down, but also to build up. To tear down what? The idol worshippers, but to return and bring the people back to the Lord. The prophets give the message. Now it's up to the people. Shemaiah, he's the prophet in the time of King Rehoboam. Then came Shemaiah the prophet to Rehoboam and to the princes of Judah that were gathered together to Jerusalem because of Shishak, and said unto them, Thus saith the Lord, You have forsaken me. What was the problem? Sin, idolatry, forsaking the worship of the Lord. Thus saith the Lord, You have forsaken me, and therefore I have also left you in the hand of Shishak. Now, why was this happening? When a people rebel against the Lord, the hand of the Lord will not be on them. The blessings will be removed. When a people rebel against the Lord, the blessings are gone. Notice what happens in verse 6. Whereupon the princes of Israel and the king humbled themselves, and they said, The Lord is righteous. You want to know when the turnaround began in Judah? Right then. The solution was what? Returning to the worship of the Lord. It was no longer the problem, it was the solution. Verse 7. And when the Lord saw that they humbled themselves, the word of the Lord came to Shemaiah, saying, They have humbled themselves, therefore I will not destroy them. This is the build-up part of a prophetic message. I will not destroy them, but I will grant them some deliverance, and my wrath shall not be poured out upon Jerusalem by the hand of Shishak. Verse 12, And when he had humbled himself, the wrath of the Lord turned from him, and he would not destroy him altogether. And also in Judah things went well. So what do we see here? We see that when the nation once again turned to the worship of the Lord, the problem was solved. The worship of the Lord was not the problem. It turned out to be the solution to the problem. Now, in many societies, what do we see? Good nations turn from the worship of the Lord, and they wonder why problems arise. Why? Because the hand of the Lord is not on those who do not worship him. But when people come back to the Lord, what will happen? The last line there, things went well. If you want to see things go well in a nation, it begins with what? The worship of the Lord. This is the most important part of what we're talking about. When a nation worships the Lord, all goes well. It is the solution to the problems. And we'll pick up with this in our next lesson.